will have only 30 seconds for their initial response before we open it back up to a head-to-head debate. After that time runs out, we'll kick it over to our astute judges for them to provide an analysis as well as decide who moves on to the finals, or who is our winner. Tyler, please introduce our judges.
Our judges, Spencer. All right. Thank you for coming out. Let's introduce our judges. Over here to my right, Dave Chittister, founder of Seed Funders, and is also providing our winner a $10,000 equity investment. Next to him, Ben Patz, managing director at Deep Work Capital. And Brooke Evans, owner of CFO Alliance. Give it up. We're waiting for one of our judges. I'm sure he's in a very important meeting, but we will skip one chair to my favorite judge, Joy Randalls, founder and CEO at New Market Partners and board chair of the Undercroft. All right, moving along to our founders. This is for third place. Ever wanted to be Leo in the movie Catch Me If You Can and experience walking through the airport with a full squad? Well, now you can purchase that squad for peanuts. Give it up for Julie and Sky Squad.
Hi everybody, my name is Julie Melnick and I'm the founder of Sky Squad. We provide airport assistance to moms, dads, seniors, and non-English speakers. And we use airport employees who are badged and background checked to get through security and help the customers from their car all the way to the gate. And I started this business because I'm a mom of 2 kids and I struggled getting through the airport, and a lot of moms can relate. So we started Sky Squad and we're ready to go.
Thank you, Julie. Jason Derulo, shimmy, shimmy, ya, shimmy, ya, shimmy, ya.
Drink.
Give it up for Nicole and Shimmy.
I love it. Yeah. All right, before I give you my 30-second pitch, everybody in this room should just do like a little shimmy. Come on. Just get it out. Okay, so I'm Nicole Dew, founder and CEO of Shimmy. We are your best friends helping you sip, snack, and see in every city you're in. So even here in Tampa, we give you recommendations of where you should go, where you should drink, where you should eat, and we're just text-based. No, literally, just text us.
All right. Our rock, paper, scissors for who goes first.
Hugs, you're great.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, one more time. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, Nicole, would you like to go first or defer?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right, Spencer, take it away.
5 minutes on the clock. Nicole, how transparent do you think founders and CEOs can really be in today's environment? What do you share with your employees/team, and what do you share with your investors? 30 seconds.
So early stage startups, you need to be 100% transparent with your team and your investors. You want to make sure that everybody has visibility into your product and what you're building. As you grow, you need to make sure that you are weathering what you need to and telling your team what you need to. You never want to cause a mass panic by any means. With investors, there are passive investors, and then there are investors who want to be involved, and making sure you leverage those investors who want to be involved in day-to-day decisions or bigger problems that you may have.
Julie, your response, 30 seconds.
I agree that you really need to be transparent in all of your communications with your employees and with your investors. I think as you grow, though, you do need to be careful with your employees that you're using judgment when providing information to them. For instance, if you're thinking about an acquisition or things are changing, I think you need to be really careful about what you're sharing because you don't want to scare people off and cause them to possibly look for employment when that's not necessary. I think transparency is very important for investors and employees, but just using judgment is really key.
Nicole, your chance to respond.
So we basically said the same thing. Yes, so transparency is very, very important, but making sure that you are the voice of reason and making sure that you're always leading by example in that. So I think we're both on the same page.
Yes.
Julie, as it pertains to brand awareness, how would you leverage a potential micro-influencer campaign to drive organic traffic towards your product or service? 30 seconds.
I love this question because I have a PR background and we use influencers a lot in our business. And what we think about influencers is the more the better. I mean, the more influencers you can get in front of, the better chance you have at reaching your audience. And I think picking the key micro-influencers is really important. In our instance, it's picking the moms that are traveling with their kids, seniors that are traveling aren't really on Instagram as much, so it's a little harder. But I think all businesses really need to look at the micro-influencers that are reflecting their business and really try to engage with them.
Nicole, 30 seconds.
So Shimmy is actually a marketplace for micro-influencers. I'm a micro-influencer as well. Hashtag yes. But you want to make sure that you're leveraging people and finding new customers in new and organic ways and making sure that you're constantly funneling into your new customer funnel. So making sure that all of your micro-influencers, no matter where they are in the world, have a voice and you're able to actually utilize them.
Anything to follow up with, Julie?
I agree. I think finding influencers that aren't only in your area but also in other areas is important, depending on whether you're a regional company or a national company or even global. So just keeping in mind where you want your customers to be coming from at that time and really making sure you're in touch with those micro-influencers.
And Nicole, what are you specifically doing right now to maybe activate this kind of campaign?
Yeah, so I'm currently using my newsletter, my social media, as well as reaching out to everybody in my network to make sure that they feel empowered to talk about Shimmy and they're excited about it and creating a really strong brand. As I like to say, the brand is really, really strong with Shimmy.
Your chance to respond as well.
We basically are doing the same thing, reaching out to customers who are using our service and then going on social to talk about our service, telling their friends about our service. We have Facebook comments. It's really great. This morning I saw a Facebook comment to a woman who was traveling with her kids, and this woman got on and said, "You should use Sky Squad. I just used it. It was amazing." And when I see things like that, it just completely validates what we're doing, and it's really exciting.
And what should you avoid?
Either one of us?
Yeah.
Oh, not falling into hot water like a lot of companies like WeWork or Away. So making sure that you are aligned with your vision and your brand, but also making sure that you're paying attention to the climate. You want to make sure that you are making sure not to say anything that you don't want to. But again, I'm just very unapologetically me, and that's how my company is as well. So just making sure at the end of the day, I'm not offending anybody too much.
Final response on this topic.
I agree with that. And I also think it's important to really align yourself with the influencers that you want to reflect your brand. So meaning, if you're a lifestyle brand, you don't really want to just be targeting like the foodie influencers. I think you really need to align yourself with people that are interested in your brand, interested in lifestyle things, travel, and go after the people that really, really are in your space.
Final question, Nicole. How do you leverage equity when trying to acquire talent that you can't afford or to incentivize current employees?
Story of my life. So we all can look at cliffs and everything like that. But I want to talk about social capital. I leverage what I have and what I know. So I paid my designer in beer and wine to make sure that I got something in exchange to give him as many opportunities as possible with my own network to meet new people. So yes, use financial capital, but at the same time, use your social capital.
Julie, 30 seconds to respond.
I think, as a startup that's growing, you really do need to use your shares to be able to offer people an opportunity to help you, but also keeping the equity. And I think there's lots of opportunities to work with people that may be interested in working with you and helping you grow and coming up with creative ways to really make sure the other, the party that you're working with is happy, you're happy, and being able to, put together an agreement that will give them shares in the long run.
Anything to respond there? You're good?
No, I'm good.
That's time.
Here we go. Over to the judges. Give it up to our founders.
So I don't mess that up anymore.
Start with Joy. Sorry. Joy, you can start. There's a...
Giving feedback? Is that my objective here? Okay, so I think you both did a good job. You clearly understand your companies and those kind of things. I would offer some words of caution, having gone through this numerous times myself and being an investor. It's a matter about being genuine and honest. So when you're talking about your influencers, just be really careful kind of how you manage that, because when it moves to being not authentic, then that's problematic, which I think you guys probably know, but it's a really fine line there. And when you mentioned WeWork, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. So WeWork is a governance and integrity issue, which I hope neither of you have. So I probably would never mention WeWork ever, or any SoftBank company for that matter. I think you guys did a really good job. I think you're in very different markets. I think there's some things, if I had to say kind of what I thought was maybe edged, Sky Squad out a little bit, was your discussion about equity. And so preservation of equity and finding alternative ways, which I've done multiple times, to compensate people without giving up an inordinate amount of equity, I think is a really smart move for founders, because you're going to need more money down the road. And when you start taking real venture money, it's different. Lastly, being transparent is great. I would argue, even with your investors, there are things you say, not that you would hide things or lie ever, because that will bite you. But there's things that, angel investors kind of get wonky. So give information that's accurate and factual. If you need help, ask for help. But don't make them worry. Unless there's a reason to worry.
Joy, who do you think? Give us your answer for who moves forward.
Sky Squad.
One for Julie. Brooke.
All right, it was a really close match, but here's what I think. You guys were really tight on the first couple of questions, but for me, I'm going to choose Shimmy, and the reason is I feel you differentiated just slightly more in terms of knowing your stakeholders. So you didn't just talk about investors, but you talked about types of investor. You talked about maybe different types of employees. So knowing your stakeholders and what they need to know and then applying the judgment was just a little bit of an edge for me. Similarly, when it came to influencers, I wanted to hear a little bit more about persona, and I felt like I got a little bit more of that from Nicole, although you were very close. And then on the equity side, I liked the creativity of the social, so I think your answer was really accurate. You want to preserve as much capital, but also give equity to the right people on your team, but being as creative as possible in terms of how you're going to distribute it and have shares available for those key employees. I felt like Nicole was creative. Sounds good. I'll take it.
1-1. Why don't we skip Ben? You'll be the tiebreaker. Dave.
Well, in going back and forth on each question, I heard about transparency. Nicole said something, and it went to Julie, and she said, "Well, I agree." And then on awareness, it went to Julie, and Nicole says, "I agree." So I saw a lot of agreement on here on both of them, and same thing. I saw some differences in some of the things on talking about leverage and equity, leveraging equity, and things like that. And they both had pluses and minuses on both. And I actually gave a half point to both of them. So it's a definite dead tie right now, and it's up to Ben.
What?
Here we go, Ben.
What?
No pressure.
What? Okay, so I thought number one that you both really understood the value of being transparent early on in your investment to your investors. I think you're going to get an awful lot of value from all the people that get involved in your company early, and realizing that you don't have all the answers is critical. And so the fact that you both got that was really, really, really important to me. I really liked what you said in terms of using more than just non-financial methods, so social capital. It was really interesting, but at the same time, I gathered that understanding how much equity and the particular value of equity was something that you missed a little bit, and I thought Julie had a better grasp of that, so my vote actually went to Julie with Sky Squad.
Julie, our third place winner. Thank you, ladies. Awesome. All right. Give it up again for our founders. It's not easy to come up here. These are tough questions. All right, we are moving on to the finals. Our first founder, This primavera is no chicken. She's traveling the world unbound of life's limitations. Give it up for Jessica with Unbound.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Unbound. Unbound unites the two parts of the equation, the traveler and the host. We provide back-end software solution to help our hosts grow and scale, and then we perfectly match our travelers and our hosts to their dream trip. So the future is Unbound.
Awesome. And our next founder. This founder famously said that with his catheters, you can still easily round third base. You know what I mean. Give it up for Tony and Blue Halo Biomedical. 45 seconds.
Hi, I'm Tony Rubin, CEO of Blue Halo Biomedical. We were formed for the sole purpose of commercializing the Blue Halo coil catheter. Our product is IP protected, urologist developed, and solves the real problem of catheter-associated infections. The CDC and NIH both see this as a real problem, killing 13,000 Americans annually. Our product, which is fully internal, reduces infection rates in a previous clinical study by 80%. Sorry, talking louder. And so basically we're a real company with a real product solving a real problem, and so far we're knocking them down. We're in our clinical trials. I'm meeting with the FDA tomorrow, and everything is as we'd like it to be.
All right. Our famous rock, paper, scissors. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ooh. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, come on, guys. Go paper. Shoot. Come on, man. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Jeez. That's right. We only got 30 minutes. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
This is going to be
Jessica, you're going first.
I think we have similar...
Remember, we will have 7 minutes for this round. Jessica, as your company rapidly scales, so will the demands as a CEO. How do you evolve as a leader to fit your company's growth? 30 seconds.
Right. So when you're in a startup, you're setting the culture. That's going to stay as you continue to scale. But also in a startup, you're having to still do a lot of the day-to-day work. But there's some foundational things that I'm already setting place in at Unbound. The first being investing in our leadership and having regular developmental check-ins, making sure that we're aligned with the culture and strategy, making sure that every piece of work that we're bringing into those funnels is aligned with that strategy and what we're trying to accomplish. So those are foundational. Go ahead.
Yeah, so to me, a company is a living and breathing thing, always changing. Certainly, to focus on strategy and finance will always be there. However, for our company, as we move down the path, we're moving from a regulatory focus, clinical trials, FDA approvals, to one of sales, to one of logistics, to one of customer service, which is our satisfying our urologist customers, our core value.
Jessica, you can finish your thought.
Yeah, so thank you. So I'm curious actually how you would lead through that though. So you said how it's shifting, but there's a part of the leadership component that ends up changing as you go. So by setting some of those foundational perspectives with my other leaders, this will cascade down to the rest of our employees so that they can then lead in the same vision of the company.
Well, from our company, we have 2 urologists who are laser focused on, for example, the FDA and the clinical. And as we pivot and we get those things done, they're going to be sales evangelists making calls to the leading urology groups. So, you know, their focus is going to sales, and I'm going to hire discrete leaders to identify or to focus on logistics and customer service, which is keeping with our core culture of satisfying, giving 5-star concierge service to our urologist customers.
Jessica, you didn't mention when the early stages you were talking about wearing multiple hats and working the day-to-day, but you didn't mention what Tony just said about bringing on new staff and becoming that leader and establishing and raising others to those leadership roles. How would you respond to Tony's response?
Yeah, so of course, as you grow, you're bringing on more staff, but the fundamental part is we already have the leaders in our company, and we're setting that culture so that when we're hiring, they are also instilling that same culture, the same the same KPIs, the same things that we have to accomplish down the road. So you're starting with the people you have today to cascade into the future you're going to have tomorrow.
Next question. Tony, what is more important to you? An unpaid pilot program with a large corporation or a check to lead your funding round by a top VC? 30 seconds.
Sure. For us, we're doing very well with capital, and the ability to get it would be a pilot program in our case would be expanding our clinicals to more urologists would be what we would go for. In the words of the previous conversation, urologists are influencers to us. The more people who see our product immediately get it. Urologists are a chatty group, and they like to brag about being the first to try something new and how great it is. So a pilot program that would give us more exposure would definitely be extraordinarily valuable to us.
Jessica, 30 seconds.
Yeah, for Unbound, it's similar. So we would also choose to be in a pilot program. For us, it's about partnering with our customer and helping them grow their business and learning from them directly, understanding what works and what doesn't work as we continue to expand out into the market.
Tony, anything to add?
No, I think getting feedback from your customers and seeing what they're focused on and what they're not focused on is valuable. Already we've had suggestions for follow-on products and things from hearing and listening to our products and our customers, and we're taking that to task. And I think at the end of the day, money is not easy, but easier to get than it is to get genuine influencers, genuine customer feedback, and evangelizing.
Jessica, your first round of hires will typically have the skill set that is a mile wide and an inch deep. But as you take the next step in your growth, your team needs to be more of an inch wide and a mile deep. How do you look at possible reskilling or replacing your initial workforce? 30 seconds.
So this is similar for me to the first question around investing in your employees early on. I worked for Target, Amazon, and PwC, and one of the things that I learned about what I learned from those companies is making sure that you're investing in your employee development, that you're bringing them along, that you're paying for training to help them get better in their field and their expertise. And then when they see that you're investing in them as a leader, they're going to invest right back into you, and you have this virtuous cycle.
Tony, 30 seconds to respond.
Sure. And we did touch on it a little bit in the first question. All of our team are extremely bright Type A folks. And we have a couple, as I mentioned, urologists on our team who right now are focused on regulatory issues, FDA approval, clinical testing. We're going to move them into direct calls with our urologist customers, so turn them into experts, trusted people, explainers, helping get our product out there. Our head of business development right now is educating hospital groups. We're going to have him close.
Jessica, reskilling can be costly and timely versus replacing, obviously. But in a startup, when you're trying to move quickly and grow and pivot, do you think that reskilling and building that culture is going to be more important to your business than replacing?
Absolutely. I do think it's more important to reskill a person, but let's be honest, it doesn't always work out, and then you do have to have conversations about whether or not that person is still the right fit when the company is growing. And then you do also have to look at bringing in additional talent. But from my perspective, the culture I want to build is investing in my employees, and so that they're also invested in Unbound.
Tony, anything to add to that one?
No, I think it's definitely important to build a culture, but I do think it's also important to evaluate employees quickly. And if we're bringing on new people, we're bringing on new people for logistics, for customer service, and very quickly we'll ascertain, are they a fit from a skill and a cultural point of view? And if they're not, we're going to replace them with people who will be, because we're moving very quickly and we need everyone to be working in sync as a well-oiled machine.
And what about the financial impact of that comes with reskilling versus replacing?
I think optimally you do reskill, but again, at the end of the day, you're making an informed choice. Are these people fitting with the team? Is it a team fit? Is it skill fit? Is it a vision fit? And if they are, you can devote a little time to reskilling. If it's not, you just need to get people who will fit in those categories, because we need to move fast, and we need to move with, at least in our case, with absolute focus on customer service and execution.
Jessica, final response.
Yeah, so I believe when you reskill people, you are investing in them to then move fast later. So sometimes you've got to walk a little bit slowly, but of course, if there is a gap, you do need to bring in the employees that have those specific skills. But I'll just reiterate, I really believe in investing in your employees because they are your stakeholders as well.
Give it up for our finalist.
All right. Taking it over to the judges. Dave, why don't you start us off?
Okay. I'll start the last question first, reskilling and replacing. And I heard a lot of the same things from both of them. Reskilling is preferred. If you have replace, you have to replace. First hires, urologist, Tony said about urologists turning into experts. So he talked about moving people from one position to another. So a lot of it was the same. I liked that Jessica threw in just casually, well, I work for Target, Amazon, and PwC. So showing from previous experience what she learned and was willing to use that in her new business. When we get to the unpaid pilot, I think the answers were both pretty much the same. They would both go for an unpaid pilot versus money right off the way. And when it comes to the first question, as scaling as a CEO, Jessica talked about setting the culture, talking about investing in leadership, and setting a foundation. Tony talked more about always moving and shifting and pivoting, and then Jessica countered him with, well, what are you shifting to and how you're shifting? So I would go with Jessica.
All right. One to Jessica. Ben.
Okay, so there were a couple of different topics right here, but most of them centered around really the culture in the company that both you felt very strongly of. But there was one thing that I heard, and it was I heard it from Jessica, was that I have the leaders in my company right now that are going to evolve with me. And the one thing I would advise a young, early company is that's one thing you don't have. You have some of them, but you don't have all of them. And one thing you always want to be doing is looking outside the company for who are those other people that I'm going to bring in that have the right culture that are going to scale this company. Sort of a second topic, you got pressed with a question which I think is a false choice, and that's the choice between an unpaid pilot and VC money. And I'm always reminded of a question that's always posed when you take your kids into interviewing in colleges, and it's should you get an A in an honors class or a B in an AP class? And the answer is neither. I want to get an A in an AP class. In this case, my answer would be no, I don't want either one of those. I want a paid pilot. And so I would encourage you always to be looking for paid pilots, people who are willing to pay for something. Really have a vested stake in that piece. But listening to both of the responses here, my vote right now goes to Tony, mainly because of his specific operational focus on the things that he needed to do next, which I think are key to an early stage company.
All right. Brooke.
All righty. So if we start with the first question on rapid scale, I felt similar to Ben. I couldn't understand how there's a leadership team yet, so I kept having a question mark around that. And I wanted to hear more. It felt a little bit intangible to me, and it made sense, the culture and building that culture, but knowing what it really takes day to day to have those leaders in your organization, I just had a hard time connecting with that. Conversely, I love everything about stakeholders, which you heard me say in the last round as well, and the fact that you know that your urologist know your client, which is the stakeholder that you're going to want to sell to, and you're thinking 2 steps ahead. I really liked that response. On the pilot and capital answer, I also like, Tony, that you shared that you were leaning towards the pilot because you have sufficient capital right now. Jessica, I didn't feel like I heard why you were leaning towards a pilot, just also that you would have one. And I felt a little bit confused, again, because I didn't know how you'd have a pilot with travelers. I didn't know who the corporate would be in that case. Airbnb. So I missed that. And then on the last question, I really wanted to hear from both of you that it would be both, because they're going to be key hires if you're thinking 2 steps ahead, that no one in your team is prepared to take that role to get you to the next level. But then you're going to have key people on your team that you want to keep forever and keep reskilling as you continue to scale. So I'd say that the third question was a draw, but based on the first 2, I'd give it to Tony.
All right, and our last judge, this is going to be a super majority vote, worth 2.
Worth 2. Wow. Okay. So I thought you both did a really good job. So I think you both know your markets really, really well. So I give you credit for that. I'm not going to, I think all the feedback you've gotten so far is really, really good. I'll say some things that I think sort of stood out for me. It's a little bit easier in some ways for Tony because his market is so defined. However, the paid pilot piece was so funny because I wrote that down because I don't believe in doing free pilots at all. And I think that the reason I don't is because people don't value what they don't pay for. I don't care if it's advice. I don't care if it's a product. It doesn't really matter. There has to be some skin in the game for those people. The other piece that kind of perplexed me a little bit with both of you, honestly, is the leadership piece. This is my honest feedback. I think you're a little optimistic, actually, Tony, with kind of what you're going to get out of PhDs and becoming advocates even to other PhDs. It's hard. And I think on the other side, when you're coming up, and I've done this a few times, I'm all for reskilling people. I think you should always look to how you empower your employees. You shouldn't bring people on board who don't have ambition and who don't have the ability to be flexible and flex around a little bit. However, specialized skill sets as you begin to scale are critical to the success of the company. Some of those people will be with you, but there are people, just like founders, that are really great at certain points in a company's life. And when you become not that person, then whether you own 50% of the company or not, you should step aside and put the right person in there if you want to do the right thing for your company. At the end of the day, the killer thing was the pilot versus the BC piece, because actually, Jess, I think your answer should have been money. And the reason I think the answer should have been money is because I think you know who your customer is, and marketing would actually be extremely important to the trajectory of your business. So my vote actually goes to Tony.
Tony is our winner. Stay up on stage for the check ceremony.
Keep it like that. Oh.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Tyler.
Presented by Dave and Dennis with Seed Funders. Congrats. Thank you for coming out, everyone. It was a great time. Dennis.